It looks like there has been a substantial change, Jen, in the Luigi Mangione case. It looks like they did not follow proper procedure when apprehending him in the state of Pennsylvania.
Yes, we knew that.
So here's what Luigi's attorney had to say earlier today.
Department of Justice has refused to allow him to be in state custody, despite the fact that they've all agreed that the state court is going to go first. Now, this is problematic for several reasons. Number one, the federal government is still considering whether to execute Luigi and considering whether to seek the death penalty. So we are fighting that simultaneously while going first here in state court. And it impacts our ability to meet with him before court, after court. He's constantly surrounded by law enforcement. He's in shackles. He was wearing a vest today, looked like I don't even know what it looked like, but a very serious vest with his legs shackled and his arms shackled. And so he's being treated differently because he's being held in federal custody than any other person who would be facing serious murder one charges in New York State court. And I made a record in court today that I don't understand what this show of danger is for. When I go visit Luigi at MDC in Brooklyn, I sit with him. He is unshackled. He walks around freely in the visiting area. We sit in a room together without law enforcement hovering over us. But for whatever reason, here, despite all the law enforcement, they need him to be wearing this vest. They need him to be shackled, and they stand right over us, and we get no time with him. So he is being treated differently because of this unusual and, frankly, just the fact that he's being prosecuted by 3 jurisdictions for one event. It all is about one thing, one single event. So we object to that.
Because you have a client that may or may not have assassinated a true master of the universe within our capitalist system. And if you do that and you shake the foundation at its core, they're going to fight back. And they will break the law if they have to, which evidently they did, because do not forget, there was a nationwide manhunt for this guy for a week.
I don't know a single person who was concerned for their safety. Honestly, it's so absurd, and it's so obvious what they're doing, which is why it almost seems like they're purposefully gunning for some sort of mistrial. It's so weird because everything they're doing is so, like, what we would call it's prejudicial, right? So it's not necessary, and it's not as relevant as it is prejudicial. There's like this balancing thing, but she definitely knows her shit, and she's not letting them get away with any of it. I mean, all they're doing is making a statement. They're making a statement. They're putting that out there. Like, people that speak out against empire, people that take direct action will be held accountable like this. It's very Hunger Games. I'm like picturing, like, it's very Donald Sutherland, like, really handling the situation. But again, I just don't see how they're going to allow this to see a trial.
I agree. I don't think that they will allow it to see a trial.
I don't see how that'll work. They will not get a conviction. They will not. So
what you're basically suggesting is that they may be looking for a way out because they just don't want the exposure.
I don't know what they want. Like, I don't think they know what to do with this. This is something that has not really been, they don't know what to do with this, because if he dies, if they martyr him, forget it. That'll go in a whole horrible other direction. If it sees a trial, it'll be publicity and everybody coming out and sharing healthcare horror stories that they don't want to have. So I do not know, which is why they're keeping him probably in federal custody and just prolonging everything as long as possible, because as long as they're prolonging him from being able to properly communicate with counsel, and they're keeping all of these motions on, like, that's what this does. Right now, they don't know what to do with themselves. Well, so it's very interesting to me, but I just do not see how this is going to ever be able to be a conviction.
Well, his attorney, Karen Aganefalo, had a little bit more to say, especially regarding misuse of his Miranda rights, among other things.
Oh,
Concerned
yeah.
that Luigi's constitutional rights were violated in Pennsylvania, and there are serious search and seizure issues that will be litigated in that case in Pennsylvania and in this case here and in the federal case, because it is alleged that Luigi had a gun on him and had other property on him that they are going to use against him in all of the cases. And if there is a search and seizure issue, and again, we have to review all of the paperwork and camera footage when we receive it before we say definitively whether we think there is one. But so far what we are seeing is we think there is a serious search and seizure issue. And so we want the opportunity to litigate it, including in Pennsylvania, where he was supposed to have a court date on February 24th, but the Department of Justice is refusing to transport him and allow him to face the charges in Pennsylvania. So he cannot litigate those issues in Pennsylvania. And which brings me to the most important point that we made today, which is Luigi's right to a fair trial is being infringed upon because he is being publicly treated as guilty and as having the presumption of guilt as opposed to the presumption of innocence, which is what he is entitled to. And although of course, I understand the NYPD's need for a press conference before an arrest or after an arrest, which they did here. I didn't like it, but they did it, and I understood it. What I did not understand was how shocking it was that this week on HBO, in a documentary, I see the chief of detectives and the New York City mayor, full hair and makeup done, sitting down and giving an interview for television and talking about the evidence in Luigi's case, talking about police paperwork that we don't have, talking about forensics that we have not yet received. I guess we have now today, but I didn't when I was sitting there learning about the case, hearing an actor play Luigi reading from a journal that they say is Luigi's, and we have yet to receive it from the prosecution. And so it's outrageous that.
Wait. So what she's saying, like, this is significantly problematic, but I just want to point out this is another strategy in terms of charging him federally and trying to get a terrorism charge or wherever they are on that and trying to scramble to get that, because if they get that, then he doesn't really have Fourth Amendment rights. So what she's talking about, when we're talking about unreasonable search and seizure, that's a Fourth Amendment issue. But something that happened after 9/11 with the Patriot Act, a lot of people understand, is that 4, 5, and 6 got thrown out the window, and all you have to do is declare somebody a quote unquote enemy combatant or whatever the language is. And so that, to me, is one of the strategies that they're probably looking at when you're trying to get terrorism charges, also in how they can keep him apart from his account, sort of like how they over-treated Julian Assange.
Great. We'll finish it.
They have time to go and prejudice Mr. Mangione's ability to receive a fair trial and go out and make these statements, but not give this to us. And so we are concerned, because if the chief of detectives is telling everybody about all this evidence, and what if it ultimately gets suppressed because it was an illegal search and seizure in Altoona, Pennsylvania, how is he going to get a fair trial?
He's not. But that's the point. They do not want him to have a fair trial. They want him to either be, well, they don't really want him.
She knows the truth.
Sure.
She knows what I know and what you know. And yet the best strategy is to constantly harp on that. But she knows that they're not going to. I so want to help them do voir dire. Like, I can't even tell you how much I would love to be present for the jury selection process for this.
Another shout out to the progressive lefty, $5. I work in healthcare and have a socialist governor in my province, and they are cutting our hours, blaming Trump tariffs, even though they haven't happened yet. And this is also something that we have seen north of the border. You know, when people complain about the healthcare system in Canada, despite the fact that it is ways better than ours, you can complain all you want about long lines. We have the same crisis as here in the United States. Just remember, in Canada, you have the right to basic needs in healthcare which you do not have in the United States, period. And so the privatization efforts that have taken place in Canada, that have even taken place in the UK with the Tories, when the system is not being utilized for the purpose of profit for multinational corporations, remember, who is the biggest shareholder in the United States for United Health? It's BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard, the private equity supergiants that basically run our economy. So if you want to know why we don't have a single-payer healthcare system in the United States, that, as much as anything, is the reason why. And that's why they must not let the Mangione story become front-page material again. They want to do everything in their power to make sure that it goes by the wayside. But credit to Mangione's attorney, who, with this story, probably brought it back into relevance in terms of a story. And that, in my opinion, is what it's all about. Because single payer, that is the end of the road. That is where we're always trying to go. And that is the road that we have to stay on. And Mangione, hopefully, is going to help us get there.
Free Luigi.
So,
wait, are we gonna? There was something else I wasn't sure if you had that you were contemplating.
well, there was.
Sorry, go on. No, go on. I wasn't. Go ahead.
So
Oh.
apparently there is this Who is Luigi Mangione streaming on Max. And of course, this is a complete propaganda piece from what I understand. So it's not a surprise. Much like corporate media, the same bullshit's going to happen here.
It won't work, though.
It won't. And
No.
it's not working.
No.